Os reitores das Universidades de Lisboa, Técnica de Lisboa e Nova de Lisboa concederam no passado dia 27 de Fevereiro o grau de Doutor Honoris Causa ao economista americano Paul Krugman, Prémio Nobel da Economia.
A Universidade de Lisboa, representada pelo seu reitor, o professor Doutor António Silveira Nova, vai otorgar o grau de Doutor Honoris Causa a Paul Krugman. A Universidade Técnica de Lisboa, representada pelo seu reitor, o professor Doutor António Cruz, vai otorgar o grau de Doutor Honoris Causa a Paul Krugman. A Universidade Nova de Lisboa, representada pelo seu reitor, o professor Doutor António Rendas, vai otorgar o grau de Doutor Honoris Causa a Paul Krugman.
Apresento o economista militante, pessimista progressista, investigador eficiente que gosta de literatura e ciência-ficção, herdeiro tanto de Paul Samuelson como de George Orwell e Isaac Asimov, comandante que não puxa pelos galões, grande teórico de baixa estatura, barbudo que nunca é barbão nem barboso, cozinheiro gourmet que se veste como um alfarrabista. This has no translation. Jornalista encorajado a ir para o Tesouro Americano na canção de rock número 77, We Need You on the Front Line, not just writing for the New York Times. Basta ver na YouTube. Mas, na última entrevista, antes de chegar a Portugal, é apresentado assim: ele está no seu elemento porque adora uma boa crise. A economia global dá-lhe uma grande tela para desenhar uma imagem depressiva, mas ele também agita para a ação que, a seu ver, nos pode tirar da bagunça em que estamos metidos.
This is a moment, I think, of when we should be doing some soul searching, and economists have reached a moment where they are very much needed. This is the kind of situation for which our profession was made. This is when we can really make a difference, and have not, I'm sorry to say, done all that we might have asked. Quite a ways from it, actually. And what I'm going to do in this talk is first talk a little bit about why it is actually moments of crisis when economics is or should be most useful. The ways in which we have actually not been as useful as we should have been. And then some of the reasons why and maybe what we can do so this doesn't happen again. So, economics, most of the time you're dealing with a more or less stable world. Most of the time you're dealing with a situation in which this year is not very different from last year, in which there are repetitive patterns, in which the ordinary business of running the economy goes on with gradual changes, because we live in dynamic economies, but the changes are gradual. Those are the times when economic analysis seems to work best. It's also the times when it is probably least useful. If the economy is functioning more or less as it should, and things are rolling along, who needs economists? Okay, now that's not entirely fair. There are clearly always going to be things that you're going to want good analysis. You're going to want to know how can you improve the effectiveness of government programs. You're going to want better tools for short-run forecasting. There's always going to be a need for people who can advise on how to make better use of water resources, or better schemes for environmental protection, or all the many other things that economists work on. And in fact, I guess you could say that much of what economists do, microeconomics, the study of small things, is something which is more or less equally relevant at all times. But macroeconomics, the study of big things, is not much needed if the economy is calm. And in fact, at times like those, the economist is often at a disadvantage compared with people who may have less technical skill, at least of their kind, with people who don't think in terms of economic models, but who have experience. If it's a normal situation and you want to know what's likely to happen to interest rates next year, or you want to know even the effect of a policy, what will happen if the government goes and privatizes some assets, whatever. It's probably, I have to say, much as it's not what I would like to say, that you're probably better off talking to someone who is a man of the world, someone who's been out there in the markets and has experience and has seen situations like this 10 times, 15 times in his or her life, and knows from experience from what's likely to happen. So yeah, I mean, fine. We can be economists in normal times, and it can be quite comfortable, but it's not all that important for the world. You could have an economy that works fine with very little in the way of economic analysis going on at the levels of policy. Now move to a time when things are massively in disarray, a time when markets are behaving in ways that are completely out of the normal experience, a time when economies are more deeply depressed than they've been in 3 generations, or when the financial system is disrupted in a way that hardly anyone living remembers. Those are times when economists are likely to feel very bad about their ability to track events. There are times when economists are likely to make a number of very, very wrong forecasts because the world is not behaving according to expectations. But it's also a time when the economist is most useful, because those are the times when hard thought, when abstract models that are obviously based on reality but simplify that reality to get at some underlying principles, that's the time when economic analysis really matters. In a normal year, 2004, 2005, if you ask someone who's spent his life in investment banking what's likely to happen to interest rates next year, he's probably going to have a pretty good answer, and he may well have a better answer than someone who is steeped in economic theory. If you look at a time like 2009 or 2010 or 2011, or at least so far 2012, when the world looks nothing like the way it normally looks, then that practical experienced person is likely to have not a clue, because he's never seen anything like this. And in fact, nobody has seen anything like this, not for 70 or 80 years, but with some luck and some hard work, the economist who has studied the underlying forces and maybe should be studied deep into economic history, has something really to contribute. So these are the times, to overstate a bit, but these are the times for which my profession was made. This is when we are supposed to be useful.
I refrain from commenting the debates in the United States about which Paul Krugman spoke to us now. But I cannot hide my alarm about what's being done in Europe. We are all aware that in the euro area, the macroeconomic policies are being dictated by Germany. And the German leading economists and policymakers are strongly influenced by freshwater thinking in the United States. But to that influence, they have their own objectives, or their own views. One of them is, as Paul Krugman has mentioned, this kind of morality that considers that if you make fiscal sins, you have to expiate them with fiscal suffering. Another is this obsession in Germany with inflation, which I think is much stronger than that of the freshwater economists of the United States.
Depois da sessão solene e da conferência sobre a economia na crise, seguiu-se um período de perguntas e respostas.